Welcome to today's episode where we explore one of the most controversial questions of recent years. What do psychiatrists say about Donald Trump? In this video, we'll dive into their perspectives, their concerns, and the debates surrounding Trump's mental fitness for office. This is not just a political issue, it's a psychological case study that has captured the world's attention. First, let's understand the environment psychiatrists find themselves in. There's a guideline called the Goldwater rule. This rule, put in place by the American Psychiatric Association in 1973, prohibits psychiatrists from diagnosing public figures without personally evaluating them. It was created after the backlash from a psychiatric diagnosis made about Barry Goldwater during his 1964 presidential campaign. However, as the authors in this book point out, this rule is being tested in unprecedented ways during Trump's presidency. Many professionals are conflicted. Do they stay silent as the rule dictates, or do they speak up because of what they see as a duty to warn the public? The central concern raised by many psychiatrists isn't necessarily about whether Donald Trump suffers from a mental illness, but rather whether he is dangerous because of his psychological state. Dr. James Gilligan, in his contribution to the book, emphasizes that danger is the key issue. Whether or not Trump has a formal psychiatric diagnosis is less important than the fact that his behavior may pose a risk to society. Gilligan and others argue that Trump's behavior, his paranoia, his grandiosity, and his impulsivity create a profile that aligns with a dangerous personality type, specifically, someone who holds immense power. Let's talk about one of the most discussed aspects of Donald Trump's personality: narcissism. Now, everyone has some degree of narcissism, but what sets Trump apart, according to Dr. Craig Malkin, is what's called pathological narcissism, a dangerous, extreme version of this trait. Pathological narcissists are constantly seeking admiration, approval, and power. They need to feel like they are superior to everyone else. Trump, as Malkin points out, exhibits this in nearly everything he does. From his Twitter rants about his electoral victory to his fixation on crowd sizes at his inauguration, Trump is driven by the need to inflate his own image. Remember the time he insisted that his inauguration crowd was the largest in history, despite clear photographic evidence to the contrary? That's not just lying. Malkin describes this as gaslighting, a tactic narcissists use to make others question reality, but it doesn't stop there. Trump's personal relationships are also affected by this narcissism. Take, for instance, his well-documented need for loyalty. Former FBI Director James Comey's firing is a textbook example. When Comey refused to pledge loyalty, Trump dismissed him, framing it as a necessity for the greater good. However, as Dr. Lance Dodds points out, this isn't just a power move. It's a deeper reflection of Trump's narcissistic need to control those around him. Dodds even goes further to suggest that Trump exhibits traits of sociopathy. Sociopaths are known for their lack of empathy, their manipulative tendencies, and their indifference to the well-being of others. One example that Dodds highlights is Trump's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Rather than showing genuine empathy for the thousands of lives lost, Trump repeatedly downplayed the crisis, seemingly more concerned about how the pandemic made him look as a leader than about the suffering of the American people. In fact, at a rally, Trump joked about testing, saying, "I said to my people, slow the testing down, please," completely disregarding the lives at stake. Malkin and Dodds paint a vivid picture of how Trump's narcissism and sociopathy aren't just quirks of personality, they're dangerous, especially when magnified by the immense power of the presidency. His desire to be seen as the best, the smartest, and the most capable often leads to impulsive and harmful decisions. And the problem with narcissists like Trump is that when they feel their grandiosity is threatened, they lash out, making decisions that are more about protecting their fragile ego than about leading a nation. Paranoia is another significant characteristic that psychiatrists have flagged in Donald Trump's behavior. According to Michael Tansey, Trump's paranoia isn't just about fearing enemies. It's about perceiving threats where none exist, and then acting out in ways that can be catastrophic. One of the most glaring examples of this is Trump's long-standing obsession with conspiracy theories. You might remember when Trump tweeted that Barack Obama had wiretapped his phones during the 2016 election. This claim, which was thoroughly debunked, illustrates what Tansey describes as delusional thinking. It wasn't based on any credible information, yet Trump acted as if it were an undeniable fact. What's more alarming is that this impulsive tweet triggered a media frenzy and spurred multiple investigations, wasting time and resources. This isn't an isolated incident. Psychiatrists have noted Trump's frequent flirtation with other baseless theories, from his promotion of the birther conspiracy about Obama to his claims that millions of illegal votes were cast in the 2016 election. These behaviors reflect a pattern of paranoia where Trump perceives himself as being under constant attack. And this paranoia leads him to make impulsive, dangerous decisions. Tanzi also draws attention to Trump's admiration for authoritarian leaders. His repeated praise for figures like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un has deeply concerned mental health professionals. Trump has expressed admiration for these strongmen, referring to Kim as a smart cookie, and even suggesting that the two of them fell in love. Tanzi suggests that this bizarre admiration for brutal dictators points to deeper psychological issues, specifically, an authoritarian mindset that sees power and domination as the ultimate goals. But here's where it gets frightening. Trump's paranoia and impulsivity extend to matters of national security. One striking example is his reckless approach to nuclear weapons. In 2017, Trump tweeted, "North Korean leader Kim Jong-un just stated that the nuclear button is on his desk at all times. Will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him that I too have a nuclear button, but it is a much bigger and more powerful one than his, and my button works." Psychiatrists argue that this kind of impulsive rhetoric could have catastrophic consequences. The President of the United States holds the power to launch nuclear weapons, and Trump's erratic behavior, fueled by paranoia and delusions of grandeur, could push the world to the brink of disaster. Tanzi and other professionals insist that this is not merely political hyperbole, it's a genuine danger that stems from Trump's psychological state. Donald Trump's psychological state doesn't just affect him, it affects the entire country. Psychiatrist Thomas Singer delves into what he calls the American collective psyche. Essentially, Trump mirrors a darker side of American society, tapping into its fears, insecurities, and anger. This is where Trump's appeal to certain segments of the population becomes clearer. As Singer points out, Trump uses rhetoric that resonates with those who feel left behind or marginalized, but he does so by amplifying division. Take, for example, Trump's infamous comments about immigrants. When he launched his campaign, he said, "When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists." This kind of rhetoric plays into what Singer describes as a collective narcissism, where people begin to see themselves as part of us versus them dynamic. Trump's ability to tap into these fears and stoke division is, according to Singer, a reflection of his own psychological need for validation. He thrives on the cheers of his supporters at rallies, often whipping them into a frenzy by emphasizing their shared grievances and fears. And this dynamic creates a feedback loop. The more Trump feels validated by his supporters, the more extreme his rhetoric becomes. It's a dangerous cycle of mutual reinforcement. Psychiatrist Harper West also explores the psychological toll that Trump's presidency has had on Americans. She coined the term Trump anxiety disorder, which refers to the stress and anxiety people feel as a result of Trump's erratic behavior and the chaos surrounding his administration. West argues that many Americans, especially those who oppose Trump, are experiencing chronic anxiety because of the unpredictability of his actions. One example of this is the way Trump handled the COVID-19 pandemic. Early on, he downplayed the seriousness of the virus, claiming it would disappear and that it was a hoax. As the pandemic worsened, Trump's refusal to acknowledge the reality of the crisis led to confusion, anxiety, and fear among the American public. West suggests that this kind of leadership, where facts are ignored and reality is distorted, creates a deep sense of uncertainty and helplessness in people. But perhaps the most troubling aspect of Trump's impact on the American psyche, according to Singer, is the normalization of dangerous behavior. Trump's lies, his attacks on the media, his undermining of democratic institutions, these actions have become so frequent that many Americans have become desensitized to them. What was once shocking now feels routine. This normalization of chaos, as Singer argues, is one of the most harmful legacies of Trump's presidency. So what's the solution? According to the contributors, the answer is complex. They point to the importance of public awareness and critical thinking. Psychiatrist Leonard Glass notes that it's not just about diagnosing Trump, it's about recognizing the patterns in his behavior and understanding how these behaviors could affect the nation's well-being. Glass and others believe that it's essential for both mental health professionals and the public to stay informed, to see what is in front of them, and speak out when necessary. The Goldwater rule may be in place, but the danger posed by Trump's psychological state has led some to challenge its relevance in today's world. The debate over Donald Trump's mental fitness is far from over, but one thing is clear: psychiatrists who have spoken out believe there is a real danger. Their warnings are not just political, they are based on decades of psychological research and clinical experience. Whether or not these concerns will have a lasting impact remains to be seen. Thank you for watching. If you found this exploration of Trump's mental state interesting, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on current events through a psychological lens.